what happened recently is the board is 5 people. They passed 3-2 a new rule that allows them to delay the submission of ballots or of their vote counts based on specifically whether there are more ballots counted than unique voters. And so this has raised kind of the eyebrows of a lot of legal experts and voting rights organizations, because it's very common to have like differences of one or a few voters or ballot numbers, because maybe people like will take their ballot away and they'll forget to actually leave it at the voting station. Little things that never change the outcomes of state elections. And there are worries that this new rule, because it allows delay of like ballot submissions or voting number submissions because of these tiny discrepancies, is going to allow maybe entire precincts or districts like voting results to be thrown out, because in case these discrepancies can't be like ramified, or you can't figure out where it came from exactly and fix it.
Okay.
Or they think it's going to allow the submission of the vote counts to be delayed for long enough that if anyone wanted to cast scrutiny or try to seize power before the votes had been finally counted, they're going to be able to do that. Does that make sense?
No, it does make sense. And as we know with Georgia, the main hub of Democrat votes come from Fulton County and DeKalb County, 2 very populous counties, okay?
Yeah.
They have a much harder job to do than the rural counties in, the center and southern and northern Georgia. Very different work that they have to do there. And so what I'm getting from this is, if Fulton County can't match up the exact number of ballots with the exact number of people that checked off and that they were present there to vote that day, then those counties might not be able to report their results. And if Fulton County results don't get reported, obviously Georgia could never vote for a Democrat.
Correct.
And so that's really scary.
The only difference I will say is it specifically says if there are more ballots than people.
Okay.
Not fewer. It doesn't account for fewer ballots than people. So it seemed like, the way I think about it, it might be less likely for there to be more ballots than people. It's hard, like I don't know what scenario would happen if that were the case. But the point still is that's one more ballot submitted than the number of unique people that are counted. And that means they can delay the results, right? They can completely gum up the gears of the election system.
Well, now I'm curious, like, has that happened? And if it did happen, what's their evidence for it? Because like, if they're going to make this rule, right, there has to be something that they identified. Yeah. Or it could be one of the, the things of like, we want to ban illegal immigrants from voting. We all know that illegal immigrants don't vote, right?
So this is part of it. Because voting fraud, we have reported on this show and is reported in many places else, is extremely rare.
Super rare.
As far as like illegal immigrants voting. But it does happen, right? I listened to a podcast once that was like, how many instances of this did you find? And it was in another county with like thousands of people. And they said, we found 2. And the interviewer asked like, do you mean 2,000? No, 2. We found 2 instances of this happening, maybe 60,000 people or whatever in the county. In this case, we're allowing those 2 illegal ballots
to stop the county results from being... But would that even count as more ballots than people? Because if those people are on the rolls...
But I think the question is whether those people can't be on the rolls or wouldn't be on the rolls. I don't know. I didn't get that technical and nitty-gritty.
The main takeaway here is that Republicans have stacked the deck in a lot of these redder states since 2020. And they've put in a lot more election deniers up and down throughout the process. Yeah. Now, we've been lucky. In 2022, when the red wave was supposed to come that didn't, a lot of Democrat Secretary of States ended up winning in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. A Republican guy in Georgia won Secretary of State who's a good...
Yeah, well, I want to give credit because this Republican, Brad Raffensperger in Georgia, he is a Trump supporter, but he is the guy that was on the phone call that was recorded that came out where Trump was asking him to find 10,600 more votes or whatever it was. And he was like, they're not there, sir. Like these complaints, they're not real. So the crazy thing about this Georgia rule now is he is one of the people who's like, this is the election board overstepping their authority. It's not up to them to make the laws. This is way more power than they should have.
Ooh, see, that's interesting. And what's also interesting here is this is a whole other catch-22 thing for the Republicans. Republicans have been going off and off and off about how only state legislatures are allowed to make laws related to your elections.
Yes.
And have filed lawsuits against state Supreme Courts that have infiltrate is the wrong word, but influenced election law. And now that there's this county commission board influencing election law, I don't see them freaking out that the Congress of the state didn't make this election law that's now being applied, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, it's all about how much of this institutional power have the Republicans captured deep in the process that makes American elections work.
And this is a big thrust of Project 2025, and kind of the whole idea behind it is in Trump's first term, he was not able to seize enough power. So this is the idea, at least, to enact the policy, to execute the policy that he wanted to see executed.
Yeah.
So there needs to be this concerted effort to get loyalists into these bureaucratic positions to make it easier for Trump and the Republicans to execute, to impart their will upon our democratic system.
Yeah, and this is coming off. Georgia's not the only one, right? North Carolina's also making some rules that are a little dicey. They've changed the way and the times that votes need to be counted and reported. And it's nerve wracking. And we know Donald Trump. He gave a speech in North Carolina the other day where he said he's like, we don't need any more votes. We have all the votes we need. We just need to make sure they don't steal it.
Yep.
Right. He's just repeating his 2020 playbook.
Yep.
And we shouldn't be surprised by that. And neither should the media, right? It should be treated with expectation. We should expect this from him. And the American people should know better. And we should be prepared for this coming in. We should, I bet you it's going to be 10 p.m. and he's going to declare victory again.
Sure.
Know.
No, I mean, I think we should be prepared, but I also want to give credit to, I mean, first of all, people are preparing. People are
preparing.
Totally preparing. They're expecting this to come. But also, these are attacks on institutions that are completely unprecedented in modern times.
Yes.
Right. So it's like it's not like there's a playbook on how to respond to these kinds of efforts.
Yeah, it's really hard when you have a set of rules, and someone is just trying to break them. When you're playing a board game with your friends, the board game only works if everyone's operating in good faith.
Yep.
Right? It's very easy to fucking bend the rules and go around. If someone's actively trying to undermine the Constitution, they will.
Totally.
If it's at the end of the day, it's the people who govern, not the government, right?
Yes.
And so if you have bad people in there, government's not going to work, and it's going to get taken from you.
So, we have a Patreon. And since you made it to the end of the episode, that means that maybe you are somewhat interested in the content we make, which, let me say, that's awesome.
That's so cool that you think that we have good takes enough for you to watch our stuff. That means a lot.
Thank you so much. You're probably wrong, but we'll take it. If you want to support the show, and we post exclusive content on there, so if you want to see more of that, see us go deeper onto a few other topics, maybe some of the stuff we post on there is stuff that we think the normies on YouTube might be a little bit less interested in, but the nerds that want to go to Patreon are more interested in, feel free to check it out. There's going to be a link in the video description. There's a link in the channel description as well.
Perfect.
We would super appreciate it.
Love you guys.